Ryan opened the email on a Tuesday morning in March. His manager had CC'd HR. The subject line was compensation update. His base salary was going up $22,000. $22,000. He sat in his car in the parking garage for 11 minutes rereading it. He called his wife. She screamed. They made reservations somewhere they'd been saving for a special occasion. He felt, for the first time in maybe 3 years, like things were finally going to change. That was 14 months ago. Last week, Ryan sat down to figure out why. With $22,000 more coming in every year, he was somehow saving less than he was before the raise. He's not stupid. He's not reckless. He's a guy who did everything right. Worked hard, asked for more, got it, and somehow ended up financially behind the version of himself that made less money. And what happened to Ryan happens to the majority of people who get significant raises. Not a few people, not the irresponsible ones. The majority. Today I'm going to show you the exact mechanism that turns a raise into a trap, why your brain is specifically designed to make this mistake, and the single decision window that determines whether a pay increase actually changes your life or just upgrades your expenses. That window is exactly 28 days. Miss it, and the research suggests you'll never get it back. My name is Robert, and if you've ever gotten a raise and wondered where it went, this one is for you. Before we get into the numbers, you need to understand what's happening in your head the moment that compensation email arrives. Because this isn't a willpower problem. When you receive a raise, your brain doesn't file it under additional savings capacity. It files it under new normal. Neuroscience researchers studying financial decision-making have found that people adjust their mental model of what they can afford almost immediately after an income change, and that new mental model becomes the baseline against which all future decisions are measured. Translation: the day after you get a raise, your brain has already spent it. Not consciously, not irresponsibly, neurologically. Your internal budget has been silently updated, and the new version of you can afford things the old version couldn't. This is before you've made a single purchase. This is why Ryan's story plays out the same way for so many people. The raise arrives, the brain updates, then comes what researchers call the cascade, a series of individually reasonable spending decisions that collectively consume the entire increase. It starts small. Ryan decided he'd been putting off getting the car detailed. Reasonable. Then the raise felt like the right time to finally get the gym membership he'd been considering. Also reasonable. His wife had been using a coffee maker that was 8 years old. The raise covered a new one easily. Reasonable. A weekend trip they'd deferred twice. Reasonable. A streaming service upgrade. Reasonable. None of these are extravagant. Every single one of them is reasonable, and together they consumed the raise faster than the raise arrived. The math behind the trap. Let me show you what Ryan's raise actually looked like in numbers, because this is where it gets both painful and clarifying. A $22,000 raise before taxes sounds like a transformation. Let's run what Ryan actually received. Depending on his tax bracket and state, that $22,000 in additional gross income likely delivered somewhere between $13,000 and $15,500 in additional take-home pay annually. Call it $14,000 to be clean. That's about $1,167 extra per month landing in his account. Now let's run the cascade. The gym membership, $65 a month. The upgraded apartment he moved into 6 months after the raise. Once the lease was up, $340 more than the previous one, because a 2-bedroom felt reasonable now. The car payment that got slightly less stressful and made a small lease upgrade feel manageable, $180 more per month. Dining out increased modestly, roughly $120 more per month. The streaming upgrades, subscriptions he added in the general sense of expansion, $55 more per month, added up. That's $760 per month in new spending against a $1,167 monthly increase. He's down to $407 a month in actual improvement, and that number continues to erode as the year goes on and the small additions accumulate. And here's the part that should stop you cold. If Ryan had taken that $14,000 annual after-tax windfall and invested 70% of it, $9,800 a year for the next 20 years at a 7% average return, he'd have added $402,000 to his net worth from one raise. One raise handled differently over 20 years creates $400,000. Ryan effectively chose the gym membership, the apartment upgrade, and the nicer coffee maker over $402,000. He didn't know he was making that choice. That's the whole point. Here's the most actionable piece of information I can give you, and I want you to actually write it down or screenshot this moment. Research on financial behavior suggests that spending patterns triggered by an income increase calcify within approximately 30 days. Within a month of a raise, the new spending level begins to feel normal. And once it feels normal, pulling it back requires the same psychological energy as a spending cut, which is dramatically harder than simply deciding not to spend in the first place. You have 28 days from the moment a raise, bonus, or windfall lands. You have 28 days to make a decision before your brain makes it for you. The decision is simple. Before the cascade starts, before the gym membership and the nicer apartment and the reasonable series of upgrades, you automate a specific percentage of the new income directly into an investment account that you do not look at and do not have easy access to. The number most financial researchers land on for this to be effective is 50%. Half of every after-tax raise gone, automated, invisible, treated as if it never existed. And you live exactly as you did before the raise for a minimum of 6 months. Not forever. Not as a punishment. Just long enough for the compounding to begin, for the investment account to accumulate enough that it starts to feel real. And for you to realize, as most people do, that the life you had before the raise was actually fine. Because here's what Ryan found when he finally did the accounting. He couldn't name a single thing in his upgraded life that had genuinely made him meaningfully happier. Not one thing. The gym he was using had a free equivalent 2 miles from his house. Like, the apartment was nicer and felt exactly like an apartment. The car was slightly more comfortable and felt exactly like a car. The version of Ryan making less money wasn't missing anything that turned out to matter. I want to reframe what a raise actually is, because I think we've been thinking about it completely backward. A raise is not a reward for your past work. I know that's how it feels, but financially, a raise is not about the past at all. A raise is a tool, a one-time decision-making moment, a window, and what you do with that window in the first 28 days determines whether the raise improves your life in the short term or your life in the long term. And those two things are in direct competition. Short term, the raise feels like permission to expand. Long term, the raise is the fastest legal shortcut to financial freedom available to most working people. You can have one or the other. You cannot have both. Every dollar in the new spending column is a dollar that won't be sitting in an account generating passive income in 15 years. Those aren't the same dollar. They're different people's dollars. The spending dollar belongs to the version of you that wants to feel the raise right now. The investing dollar belongs to the version of you that wants to feel something entirely different in 2039. Ryan's going to get another raise. He knows that. His trajectory is good, and he has made a very specific decision about what he's doing the day that email arrives. He's already written it down. 50% of the after-tax increase automated to his brokerage account the same day he receives it, before he calls anyone, before he makes reservations, before the cascade starts. The reservation can happen 6 months later. It'll still be a celebration. It'll just be a celebration of two things instead of one. Raises feel like freedom, and they can be freedom, but the default path, the one your brain will take automatically unless you interrupt it, turns every raise into an upgraded set of expenses that simply raises the floor of what you need to maintain your life. That's not freedom. That's a more expensive treadmill. The job, the hard work, the negotiation, you did all of that right. The 28-day window is the part nobody teaches you, and it's the only part that determines whether the raise actually changed anything. This is not financial advice. I'm not an advisor, just someone who has watched this pattern repeat enough times that it stopped feeling like a coincidence. If this made you think of a raise you got that somehow disappeared, drop it in the comments.